Hi, I'm David Pratt. I'm the Director of Community and Business Development here at the Myton Hospices. At Myton, we care for people who are living with a terminal illness as they approach the end of their life. We also care for their families and friends, and we believe that everyone is an individual and should be treated that way, and that's the way we've been working for nearly 40 years now. You might have seen us in recent years at Warwickshire Pride, and that's because we've been reaching out to lots of different communities, including the LGBT community, to try to help people understand and be more aware that Myton Hospice is there for them and the people that matter to them. In a moment you'll hear from Kelvin, one of our trustees, about how we looked after him and his husband Clive when Clive sadly became ill a few years ago. But for now, I want to wish you on behalf of everyone at Myton a very happy Warwickshire Pride 2021, and we look forward to being with you in person again next year, all being well. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Kelvin Jones and I'm a trustee at Myton Hospice. Yes, that's right. Progressive rock largely sort of started here in the Midlands in 1966 through to 69, and Clive was in a pioneering rock band at the time called Black Widow, and they had some notoriety and fame. They've never been played on the BBC. They've always been banned, and that's still their claim to fame. And they had considerable success to start with, and then a US tour collapsed in 1969, and the management company formed a replacement band called Black Sabbath, and the rest of that story, I suppose, is history. But right up to the end, even during Clive's last days in Myton, members of Black Sabbath and Black Widow were visiting him regularly in the hospice and partying along as much as they could. Clive was an inspiration to me. He was not only the great love of my life, he was very brave during the early days in the 1970s when life for gay people was quite difficult, in actually being out there as an openly gay artist and coping with all of the challenges and issues that would go along with that. So when I met Clive, and I was myself working in the oil and gas industry on some major energy projects and working in some very difficult and challenging places around the world, it was an inspiration to me to myself be openly gay, particularly, for instance, when I was working in Iran, in Qatar, in Pakistan, and in India. And that was a wonderful thing to actually, to be in a privileged position where you can represent everything that you tried to do for the last 30 or 40 years out in real life. Yeah, that's so. I suppose because Clive was used to working on film and television, and I got used to doing that in my job in the oil and gas industry. We were, I suppose, naturals to be approached to promote civil partnerships at first, and we had the first male civil partnership here in Rugby at Brownsover Hall. And then little did we realise that only a few months later it would be possible to get married. And campaigning as we were, we fought hard to have our right to get married. But that became difficult because of Clive's terminal illness and the time that we were spending in and out of hospitals. And right up to the very end, we were fighting for this right to marry, and we were ready to get married Warwick Hospital towards the last days of Clive's life. But unfortunately, Clive died 2 days before the legal sanction allowed us to do that. But our sort of only consolation is that Nick Bowles, who was the minister at the time, mentioned Clive and myself in the House when he announced the legislation. So at least there's a record in Hansard saying that, you know, Clive and Kelvin didn't make the marriage that they wanted to have, but this House recognises that they're married in all but name. I think there's something quite sort of special about my generation. We are the generation of gay men who began our lives criminalised just because of who we were. And for many of us, we were estranged from our families and we found it difficult to make friends. And so for a lot of us, we lead very solitary lives. And although Clive and I were quite popular at work and we had good relationships with our family, nonetheless, we led very private lives. So when Clive became ill, I quickly fell into the role of becoming sole carer for Clive. And Clive was ill for a long time, nearly 4 years. And gradually, this wore me down. It didn't wear Clive down, but it wore me down. And Clive was, I think, loving enough to know that one day when we were coming to St. Cross Hospital in Rugby to do a blood test, we were driving past Myton and Clive just said, "Turn in," and he did. And we got out of the car and we almost staggered into the hospice, and we were immediately embraced by the staff. And just loved and just felt to be welcomed, and we knew that we'd found help. Yeah, that's right, the band was called the Mugshots, and they're still going, and they were huge fans of Clive. Clive worked a lot with young musicians all around the world, and his last album for Black Widow was made with contributions from Italy, the Netherlands, Germany, and the United States. And right at the very end, he wanted to keep working, and we did. And Clive's last recording was a cover of Madonna's Frozen. And the band flew in the last week of Clive's life, and they were playing rushes together of the video and editing it actually in the suite that we occupied at Myton Hospice. And it's worth mentioning that, you know, the accommodation at Myton is so lovely and welcoming. Clive had his own balcony. He had a garden view. He had a little table out there that he could sit and talk to other musicians. And Tony Martin from Black Sabbath came for a visit. So Mugshots came there working. And the whole experience of Clive's last week was almost business as usual for him, although he was, you know, struggling towards the end of his life.
Happy Pride.
Happy Pride.
Happy Pride.
Happy Pride.
Happy Pride.